cloudy water left over from boiling pasta, the stuff most people pour straight down the drain, feeds plants faster than almost anything I have bought at the garden center. Let it cool and water your plants with it once a week, and you will see a difference in the leaves within 10 days. The starch feeds the soil bacteria right around the roots, and when those bacteria are thriving, your plants pull in nutrients that were always in the soil, but never quite getting through. I have been pouring it on my tomatoes for 20 years, and the difference between a plant that gets it and one that does not is visible from across the yard by August. Now, pasta water is the one I always mention first, but it's not the one that surprised me most. The one that surprised me is something almost every gardener throws away every morning, something that does for flowering plants what I paid good money at the nursery trying to replicate for years before I finally realized it was already sitting on my kitchen counter. We will get there. But the first thing on this list is the one I reach for the moment. A plant looks pale and tired, and it works faster than anything that comes in a bag. Number 1 is coffee grounds, but not the way most people use them, because most people are using them wrong and wondering why nothing is happening. The mistake is piling them straight onto the soil around the base of the plant. Coffee grounds clump. When they dry out, they form a crust that sheds water instead of letting it through, and the plant underneath ends up drier than before, not better. What actually works is steeping them like a tea bag. Take 2 or 3 tablespoons of used grounds, drop them into a gallon of water, let it sit overnight, then water your plants with that liquid the next morning. You get the nitrogen without the crust, the roots get it directly, and a pale plant will show new green growth within the week. I learned this one the hard way. Spent a whole summer piling grounds around my roses and wondering why they looked worse for it. Number 2 is banana peel water, and this is the one that changed how I grow anything that blooms. Banana peels are loaded with potassium, what a flowering plant needs the way a runner needs good shoes. Without it, you get the effort, but not the performance. Most bloom boosters at the garden center are selling you that same potassium in a pretty bottle at a price that would make your grandmother put it right back on the shelf. Take 3 or 4 peels, put them in a jar, cover with water, soak them for 48 hours, then water your roses, petunias, tomatoes, or peppers with that liquid once a week through the blooming season. My roses this past summer had stems so thick my neighbor came over just to ask what I was giving them. Banana peels, nothing else. Number 3 is eggshell tea. And if you have ever lost tomatoes or peppers to blossom end rot, that ugly black sunken spot on the bottom of the fruit, this is the reason it happened, and the free fix that stops it. Blossom end rot is calcium deficiency. The plant cannot move calcium fast enough when it is fruiting heavily in hot, dry weather. Crushed eggshells release it slowly over months, but what I do is make the tea. A dozen crushed shells in a gallon of water, soaked overnight, strained and applied at the base once a week, from the moment the plant sets its first flower. I have not lost a tomato to blossom and rot in 11 years. 11 years. Every eggshell from every breakfast goes straight back into the garden instead of the trash, and I have not paid for a calcium supplement since. Out of these first 3, the coffee, the banana peels, the eggshells, which one have you been throwing away without knowing what it could do? Drop it in the comments. A gardener in a different climate is always reading those answers, wondering whether what works in your yard might work in theirs. This is exactly what I had in mind when I put together the Lazy Garden Blueprint. All of these things work far better inside a system than scattered across the garden on a random Tuesday. I kept watching good gardeners do all the right things in the wrong combination, and still wonder why the garden never quite came together. So I built a 30-day system around layers and timing where everything feeds into something else and the whole thing runs itself. It is on screen if you want it. But there are 3 more things on this list, and the last one is the one I want you to hear about most. Number 4 is cooking water from vegetables. Not just any vegetables, but specifically the green ones. The water left from steaming spinach, peas, broccoli, or asparagus picks up trace minerals as they cook. Let it cool completely. Warm water shocks roots. Then water your container plants with it. Containers need this most because plain water flushes the trace minerals out of the potting mix over time and never puts them back. Spinach water, broccoli water, asparagus water, all of it goes into a jar on my counter and goes on my pots every few days. My window box herbs have never looked better, and I have not bought liquid fertilizer since. Number 5 is onion skin tea, and this is the one almost nobody's talking about, but your grandmother probably knew it and just never thought to explain why it worked. The dry, papery outer layers of an onion contain quercetin and a handful of trace minerals that act as a mild natural antifungal when brewed into a tea and applied to plant leaves. Fungal problems, the powdery white coating on squash leaves, the black spots on rose foliage, spread quickly in humid weather and slow down when the leaf surface has even a light protective coating. I boil a generous handful of onion skins in 2 quarts of water for 20 minutes, let it cool, strain it, and spray it on any plant that tends toward fungal trouble every 2 weeks through the summer. It costs nothing, it works, and all you have to do is stop throwing the skins away. This is the kind of thing your grandmother knew, and nobody teaches anymore. Number 6 is rice water, and this one surprised me most, because once I understood what it was doing, I could not believe I'd been pouring it down the drain for decades. Rinsing rice releases starch and a strain of beneficial bacteria called lactobacillus into the rinse water. Lactobacillus lives naturally in healthy soil, and when it gets depleted by overwater and heavy rain or years of synthetic fertilizers, the soil stops working the way it should. Plants get enough water, enough light, enough of everything on paper and still look wrong. Limp, pale, slow to respond. That listlessness is usually the soil bacteria, not the plant, and rice water is how you restore what is missing. I keep a jar next to the stove. Every time I rinse rice, that water goes on whatever plant needs attention. Inside 2 weeks, I watched a peace lily that had been struggling in the corner of my kitchen for 3 years put out 2 new leaves and stand up straight for the first time. The difference between a garden that feeds itself and one that always needs something more is not a bigger fertilizer budget. It is understanding what the soil and the roots actually need and recognizing that most of it has been sitting in your kitchen this whole time, heading for the drain. Now, knowing what to use is one thing. Building the garden so everything works together, the soil fed at the right time, the layers doing their jobs. You're not standing out there every weekend patching what is not working. That is what I put together in the Lazy Garden Blueprint. I built it because I spent a decade doing everything separately and nothing systematically, and once I understood how a layered garden sustains itself, I never went back. It is a 30-day system built around the lazy layer method. Plant combinations and soil habits that come back stronger every year, crowd out the weeds, and take more off your plate every season instead of adding to it. Every decision came from watching the same mistakes repeat in garden after garden, including my own. It costs something, because putting it together took real time. The link is on the screen. If you want the garden without the fussing, that is where it is. Save those onion skins. See you in the next one.